Okay, welcome back to members of 121 Community Church in Grapevine, Texas, and our ongoing study in Jürgen Moltmann and the Work of Hope, edited by Doug Meeks, professor at Vanderbilt Divinity School. We're going to take a look at our final essay. It'll be pages 113 to 126 by Joshua Ralston on the Kairos moment. The Kairos moment. And the Kairos moment consists of three sub-moments of life, truth, and conversion. Life, truth, and conversion. Let's begin with block 1 and take a look at the Kairos moment of dialogue, life. The refugee crisis. How should Christian theology address the refugee crisis in light of the tension between Christianity and Islam? Muslims are generally treated with suspicion. So, under this conflict with Christianity and Islam, Moltmann says a special Kairos time is needed to establish dialogue, called Kairos moments, as a reflective praxis act of theology. So let's take a look at note 3. Refugee crisis and Christian-Islam conflict equals the need for genuine Kairos dialogue. Kairos moments are defined within a threefold context of life. Life-threatening conflict exists. Truth. The truth of life is at stake. And conversion. Life and truth call for conversion. Therefore, our triad consists of Zoe, Aletheia, and metanoia. The global response to forced migration has been insufficient. Millions have been confined to underfunded camps. Borders are being restricted. Borders are being closed. What about the impact on truth and justice? Arab refugees are signified as criminals. The real challenges are housing, education, healthcare, and social integration. The crisis has developed along with a decisive religious bent. And I think we all would have to agree that that is true. That certainly has been the case, especially in America, that Arab refugees are viewed with suspicion, and that his threefold aspect of the Kairos moment is significant. It consists of considering a life-threatening conflict, considering the truth of life being at stake, and the need for true conversion or metanoia, change of mind. So there's a need for a change of mind concerning our attitude toward refugees, especially those of the Islam faith. Concretely, how do we talk about this truth and dialogue? Let's go to block 2 and take a look at truth through concrete dialogue. Dialogue as recognition. The Kairos moment of dialogue creates a new framework for dialogue, open to theological inquiry, ensuring that the word of the cross is recognized, because we face a dilemma of identity. Our identity is coupled with our openness to solidarity to keep those in balance. Dialogue as identity. We practice inter-religious solidarity while positing the saving power of Christ. Seeking justice, the Kairos righteousness, and we move beyond fear and recrimination. Moltmann exemplified this step in his own history of opening up dialogue with Jewish scholars, opening up dialogue with the Jewish voice. Dialogue as the Kairos. logos plus koinonia equals dikaiosune. The word of the cross plus solidarity and fellowship will bring about dikaiosune, righteousness and justice. Through a shift in thinking, through metanoia, change of mind. That becomes our guide and dialogue. And our very first step for this change of mind is learning about the other who we confront. If you're going to practice an openness and solidarity and dialogue, you have to learn about the other who you confront. Dialogue as bearing witness. Dialogue takes place at the intersection of shared concepts and discerning their differing meanings, and then striving for a common word between the parties in dialogue. And Christianity and Islam do share concepts, but they differ in their meaning, and we strive for that common word between us. Therefore, we've looked at the theoretical block 1 and the 3 moments of Kairos dialogue. We've looked at the concrete dialogue in block 2 and this need to bear witness while keeping that balance between identity and solidarity. Therefore, block 3, we now look at conversion. We've looked at life, we looked at truth, now we look at conversion. A conversion to God's coming justice. We begin with metanoia, change of mind. We are called to a turn to shared action with a new mind of interreligious focus within a political dialogue for the formation of true community, of justice and equality. Formation of community, koinonia, fellowship and community. Moltmann says theology should be political and particular both, through interreligious engagement, taking up the Sermon on the Mount, within the tension between Christian particularity and openness towards solidarity. So it's openness towards solidarity, but also positing Christian particularity and identity. Therefore, we conclude with block 3, note 3, the dialogue of particularity and openness. We must negate false witness of anti-migrant policy. It is false toward the gospel. For Moltmann, Trinitarianism engenders radical mutuality and political sharing. To witness for the sake of justice, conversion for the sake of justice, we are to bear witness to God's kingdom that combines truth and justice. God's rule overcomes death, poverty, war, and tyranny. Our task is to reframe the Christian-Muslim encounter through the common call to bear witness to God's coming justice and to our identity in Jesus Christ. Our particularity is the particularity of the gospel. Our openness is openness to interreligious engagement. Beautifully organized essay, very well done, and a very good description of the Kairos moment. Remember, Kairos time is Advent time. It's transcendent Advent time. It's the vertical Advent time of God's transcendence through Christ and through the Word of Christ. And that happens in dialogue if we are open to interreligious solidarity and if we are imprinted in our heart by the person of Jesus Christ, then we can have dialogue in this life-threatening Kairos moment. We can cling to the truth within the concrete dialogue, and we can stand for a change of mind, seeking God's coming justice. All of that can take place if we truly follow the direction of the essay outlined here. Very well done. In block 1, we were given, if you take a look at the Block 1, Note 3, we were given the Kairos moments, the threefold context. It consists of life. Life-threatening conflict exists. Truth. The truth of life is at stake. Conversion. Life and truth call for conversion, a conversion to a new change of mind. To a new change of mind. Concretely in Block 2, we learned that Block 2, Note 3, dialogue, is the Kairos new righteousness or justice. It is the word of the cross and the solidarity and koinonia fellowship that will bring about a new righteousness, a new dikaiosune righteousness, through a shift in thinking or change of mind. That becomes our guide. But we must learn about the other we confront. We must learn. Then we can authentically take up dialogue as bearing witness, and that means bearing witness to the person of Jesus Christ, bearing witness to our identity in Jesus Christ, bearing witness to the Sermon on the Mount, and the openness in interreligious solidarity, while still positing our own particularity of identity in Christ. All of that, Block 1, Block 2, led us to Block 3 and the conclusion of a true conversion to God's coming justice. Now, conversion is metatrepo. Conversion is metatrepo. But metatrepo, conversion, comes about through metanoia, change of mind. So metatrepo requires metanoia, change of mind. But Block 3 is about that conversion, that metatrepo, conversion. But it's a conversion to God's new coming justice, justice which requires interreligious dialogue, standing firm in our identity, but being open in solidarity and openness to try to establish a community of new fellowship based on the Sermon on the Mount, based on the person of Jesus Christ. Very well done essay here. I'm very impressed with this essay. And it's only 13 pages, 113 to 126, but Professor Ralston does a good job here of outlining the threefold aspect of the Kairos moment. What about this Advent time, this vertical intersection of Advent time that creates the new in a historical situation? In this case, it's the historical situation of refugee crisis. Ralston is very specific in this historical situation. We're discussing the refugee crisis. So we confront this historical refugee crisis, and how does the vertical Advent Kairos moment of transcendence, of eschatological opening up of the kingdom unfold? Well, it unfolds through dialogue which will find common ground. Dialogue that will find common word between parties. We carry with us the word of Christ, the word of the cross. We also carry an openness toward solidarity and an openness toward establishing new community. This is called bearing witness to Jesus Christ. But it's a very particular, focused, praxis-based essay on refugee crisis. And so, very well done. Professor Ralston takes up the challenge of praxis and writes a praxis essay, specifically dealing with a particular, concrete historical situation of the refugee crisis, and then asking, how does the teaching from our prophet, Jürgen Moltmann, help us to address this refugee crisis? And how does the word of the cross affect the believer in this refugee crisis? And how do we engage in concrete dialogue that seeks Aletheia truth of the kingdom in refugee crisis. It is all praxis-based. The entire essay is praxis-based. Very well done. Superb essay. And that's going to conclude our study of this book. 9 essays, edited by Doug Meeks at Vanderbilt Divinity School. All 9 essays were superb. And we end with a praxis-based essay on the Kairos moment. I'm very impressed with this essay by Professor Ralston. And that's going to wrap up this study. We'll discuss our next study in our next meeting.